Good day, everybody. I'm so happy to be presenting an update to this case 1 year later. The first part of the case can be found on the YouTube channel of Global GHK under GHK, the Game Changer in Special Needs Cases. 1 year later, there are a lot of shifts that occurred and many positive changes since then. It wasn't a fully smooth ride, of course, but understanding the laws of nature through Germanische Heilkunde and the polyvagal theory, as well as the laws of bioregenesis or self-renewal, helped get us through any bumps on the road, big or small. I'm Elia Bella, and I lead the biohacking and Germanische Heilkunde movements in the Philippines. Both together will empower humans to be in control of their biology and to truly be the sovereign human beings that is our birthright. I believe that the upgraded human will be a reality, not just a possibility. And for 10 years, I've been aligning with the laws of nature, and the culmination of this work brought me to a life or death situation where I used the embodied wisdom of Germanische Heilkunde, the ventral vagal muscle that I've fully trained for 10 years through biohacking, and the law of bioregenesis, providing me with a vital energy I needed to survive a highly severe, emergency-worthy asthma attack last year. Many times I thought I would die that night, but the deeply embedded knowledge and resilience of my biology kept me afloat. And it is my passion to teach this to all willing human beings so they can actualize their human potential. In 2015, I discovered biohacking and I met Dave Asprey, who became my mentor. I was certified as a human potential coach and use machines and gadgets to support cellular energy. Biohacking aims to strengthen vagal tone, that is, to build resilience and the power of self-regulation using science-backed technology. And these machines have helped me and my clients achieve a higher potential for positive shifts. I work with humans of different ages to help balance adverse childhood experiences, which have played a role in shaping the personality and behavior outcome in humans, what we call in Germanische Heilkunde as conflicts and constellations, both the source of our gifts and the darkest of our shadows. The human potential can effectively be actualized when we understand ourselves and why we are the way we are, and harness this knowledge to our advantage. This work is deeply rooted in understanding the polyvagal theory and the importance of safety as the main prerequisite for human evolution to take place. To provide brain support to kids with special needs, I use the Anat Baniel method based on the Feldenkrais method to help turn on the learning switch and harness the gift of neuroplasticity, or the brain's capacity to change. And the brain also likes to spark new neuronal pathways that lead to improved outcomes for the organism. I discovered Germanische Heilkunde in 2021 and pursued many courses since then, and I'm still deeply in many courses, just learning this inside out. Right now, GHK is at the core of not just my work, but especially my life. Everything I do or perceive is always from the lens of biology and nature. Thank you to the 5 biological laws of nature of Germanische Heilkunde. This is a quote from my GHK mentor that says it all. There are no childhood diseases, only separation conflicts. And if we are to align with the laws of nature, we will know that there is nothing more important than for little children to be seen, heard, and loved by attuned caregivers. Nature planned it this way. And today I have the honor of presenting an ongoing, no longer labeled special needs case, Ziggy, viewed through the lens of Germanische Heilkunde and supported by a personalized biohacking protocol guided by the laws of the polyvagal theory and bioregenesis. GHK continues to be the cornerstone of this journey, offering not just insight, but a roadmap for understanding the biological meaning behind his symptoms. And this year, I'll be sharing exciting updates on Ziggy's progress, how we've tracked his shifts across the psyche-brain organ levels, how his constellations have evolved, and how biohacking strategies have supported the journey. And Ziggy is in a wonderful place. Thank you to Germanische Heilkunde. He is forever optimizing his brain and body and becoming the man, the little man that he is meant to be. To recap, Ziggy came to me mid-2023, an 8-year-old left-handed boy, medically diagnosed with ADHD, motor and vocal tics, coprolalia, which are cuss words, and echolalia, which are repeating words. The Dirkhammer syndrome, or DHS, for the tics began on November 9, 2020, when he was aged 5, when the iPad was yanked from his hands by his parents in punishment. And this case study covered the period from July 2023 to May 2024, and 1 year of conventional medical treatment and another year with functional medicine with great improvement in energy, but no change in his behavior and presenting symptoms, ADHD and tics. And Ziggy had several conflicts and constellations, but we worked on the main ones: the motor cortex constellation, the flying constellation behind ADHD and motor and vocal tics, and territorial marking constellation behind bedwetting. I'm proud to say I used several biological lenses to clinch Ziggy's family's case, with Germanische Heilkunde being the main lens for everything. The most important practical tool we had in the toolbox was the Freya Biorelations course created by one of our mentors, and the polyvagal theory is the cornerstone in the biohacking self-health arena, and themes from this body of work guided my actions and helped the parents understand the direction we needed to go in the theme of child development and attachment to attuned caregivers. Ziggy is now 10 years old, and whenever I ask his mom about his hyperactivity, she says, "What hyperactivity? It is no longer there." Ziggy's so nice to hang out with now, and he loves to join the family conversations when there are guests. His vocal tics have disappeared but reappear when there are very specific tracks that we have identified. Some new ones are emerging, but still fall into a pattern. Motor tics are still present, but the energy behind them are completely different this year. It is so crucial to have the entire family on board so that they can balance and co-regulate together. Everyone's nervous system had to be able to self-regulate and regulate while Ziggy goes through his roller coaster healing journey. Especially the nervous system of the mother is the most important, since they are a dyad together. Just to recap last year, some of the wonderful milestones of Ziggy: he won 7 behavioral awards, where in previous years it would have been quite a stretch, but his behavior had improved so much. He also gained a lot of empathy and compassion and started opening up and expressing love and appreciation towards his parents, whom he was terrified of in the past. Ziggy also awakened his artistic side and started painting, drawing, and playing several instruments. He was becoming more well-rounded, and his brain was sparking many possibilities. Understanding these biological laws was pivotal in guiding this case, especially in helping the parents reframe each crisis as a meaningful step forward. Even though intense healing phases and repeated epicrises, the perspective gave them hope and clarity. And they came to see that true healing is not immediate. It unfolds with time, patience, and trusting in the body's natural rhythms. Unlocking the 5 biological laws of nature and discovering how the psyche, brain, and body work together in perfect biological logic. Symptoms aren't mistakes. They are meaningful, intelligent responses to life's conflict shocks. From identifying the initial conflict to recognizing healing phases and tissue repair, every step is part of nature's design. Healing becomes predictable, purposeful, and deeply empowering. This year, we just continued the best of what we did in the first year, and I'd like to focus a lot on what I feel is a great complement to GHK, the polyvagal theory, which helps support Ziggy's nervous system regulation and his sense of safety at home and within his surroundings. We also had the privilege of getting a CT scan reading of Ziggy's brain by a mentor in Europe, and this helped us clarify our direction for the whole family's healing. We had a mentor read Ziggy's CT scan for Hummer foci on September 2024, and the CT was taken on July 2024. The motor cortex has been downgraded to a spinal self-evaluation, partner cited, likely related to the father. There's also some neck twisting. There is an overwhelmed conflict on the partner side, again, likely related to the father. A territorial loss conflict related to losing the iPad is still there. A flying constellation, including the laryngeal muscles on Broca's area, where the vocal tics originate, and the territorial fear as well. A hearing conflict on the left ear. With the mother, we matched and analyzed some biological conflicts and patterns, such as vocal tics disappearing when mom is at work and exploding when she comes back home, indicating that it is a resolution to a separation conflict from her. He has a pushing tic in the jaw area, the trigeminal nerve, likely a losing face biological conflict. He also has flying games, which are his favorite to play on the iPad. And the tics give a clue that they might be from being around a girl or a bird. We checked his games, but there weren't birds. We couldn't figure out who it was for a long time or what was giving him these high-pitched tics. And it was decided that the parents adapt to Ziggy's way of communication, more tactile or visual rather than verbal. Keep a journal of Ziggy's habits and behavior and track patterns, and also include Ziggy in the discipline or punishment instead of exploding in anger or always telling him no. Let him think about what rule he is breaking, and then let him realize it and let him come up with a solution together with the parents. Ziggy has cold feet, so skin to skin co-sleeping is recommended to prevent separation conflicts. Avoid angry or frustrated body language, track behaviors when parents are not home, and of course, provide more comfort and security as much as possible. So these were amazing insights that I took from the CT reading that guided our direction. So basically, we know the human nature of Ziggy, and this directed human nurture, or how to nurture Ziggy's psyche. In reviewing the previous conflicts, bedwetting was a 9-year biological conflict since birth that was clinched by May of last year. Since that case study, it happened only one time and then never again. So we can confidently close this constellation. Ziggy no longer has ADHD or hyperactivity symptoms, and his motor constellation has downgraded to a single conflict. We understand ADHD, or the loss of short-term memory, is related to a separation conflict. And since we optimized the relationship between Ziggy and his mother, Ziggy and his father, there's no longer a perceived separation from them. Therefore, this enhanced his brain function as well, and there's no longer any short-term memory loss and no longer any hyperactivity. His vocal tics have decreased significantly, and they just reappear in a very clear pattern. Motor tics are still present, but are progressing and changing in form and frequency, and a pattern is emerging as well. So we look at the vocal and motor tics as a self-evaluation motor conflict in the spine as part of the motor conflict. But since then, we have actually seen that the constellation, one side has already resolved. Therefore, it's no longer a constellation, but there's just a single conflict self-evaluation in the spine. And we also have some of the feeling stuck. So vocal tics are stuck vocals. He still has some facial tics or losing face, and motor tics of sometimes hitting someone back, which we look at as something to do with a game. There's a lot of contests. He also plays with a lot of playmates online who he wants to best, who he wants to be better than, or there's like an underlying competition that is going on in the game that sort of triggers these habits, as he calls them. So we are studying them to look at what is in his psyche. Is it distress, or is it simply competition? In reviewing Ziggy's biological conflicts, also the vocal tics have the Hummer focus on the laryngeal muscles right on Broca's area. It is a territorial conflict around not being able to play his iPad, especially when they're school, and thus he has associated school to the loss of freedom, being stuck, or a threat to losing his iPad. The mom is not so worried about hearing the vocal tics anymore as she uses it as data to add to her investigation of possible tracks and patterns. He also has a Hummer focus on the bronchial mucosa, also a territorial fear, completing the flying constellation, and noting that he also has a territorial loss conflict on the right hemisphere of the brain, as we have checked through the CT scan. During vacation, the parents just give him free will to do what he will with the iPad. He can play 7 hours if needed if it's on vacation. And this really has helped his psyche a lot. And he, as a maturing little man, because he has caught up with maturity, he is able to put down the iPad and do something else. So this is a really big change that we've seen in Ziggy for this past year. When we look at Ziggy's conflicts, most of them are in the territorial area, which feels territorial conflicts and separation conflicts. This area encompasses relationships and communication, of course, starting with his relationships in the nest. First with his parents and then everyone else around, his siblings, his nanny, and everyone else that's there. When we speak of biological conflicts, we have to look at Ziggy being in survival mode, and we have to ask, what is threatening his safety? The relationship and communication that needed balance in Ziggy's brain is the one with his own parents. More often than not, I tend to look at the nest and see how the dynamics are. Does the child feel safe? Is he seen and heard? This was a key goal that I needed to accomplish in my healing protocol so that he could feel connected to his caregivers and feel safe in the nest. The flying constellation, which is still present, is a double territorial fear conflict for a left-handed male. In the past year, it was around a fear of his caregivers, his parents, including his nanny, and the territory in question was the fear of losing his iPad as it used to be yanked from his hands. And we've done a ton of work around that. And now, like I mentioned, he just gives back his iPad willingly or puts it down willingly. And sometimes he doesn't even pick it up in some moments where he would just prefer to play in the garden or play with his friends outside. However, last year he wasn't feeling safe and he didn't have a lot of friends yet. It was my goal to help Ziggy gain friends easily and find safety first in the nest and then in school and beyond. So first, we need to look at the branches of our nervous system. It is no longer a two-branch system, as we know in Germanische Heilkunde, which is sympathetic and parasympathetic, or sympathicotonic or vagatonic. There are actually three branches in the polyvagal theory. The dorsal vagal, or shutdown at the bottom of the ladder, when things feel really bad or overwhelming, your body might just shut down to protect itself. You might feel tired, frozen, or like you want to hide. This is the primal shutdown circuit of fish or amphibians. The sympathetic fight or flight in the middle of the ladder, your body gets ready to protect you when you feel scared or in danger. Your heart beats faster, you breathe quicker, and you might feel like running away or fighting. This is the reptilian brain. Then we have the ventral vagal or social engagement system. At the top of the ladder, you feel safe and calm. You can smile, talk, have fun, and connect with others. You use your senses to connect with others. Your body moves up and down this ladder depending on how safe or unsafe you feel in your environment. Ziggy's nervous system was primarily in survival mode, the dorsal vagal and sympathetic reptilian. But my goal was to build it up to the more advanced ventral vagal or safe mode. We know Ziggy had a feeling stuck conflict where he wasn't allowed to move or was too scared to move. And this could stem from fear and stuckness, from over-disciplining and punishment, and his territory being taken away. Thus, neuromovement and physical movement would be his brain and body medicine. Another is to transmute his fear of his parents into feeling socially engaged and connected to them. It has been almost 2 years of this solution, and it's been amazing as there are days when he doesn't even pick up his iPad, Of course, in the beginning, it didn't seem like it was working, but we just needed to keep pushing through until it does. You don't learn a new language in a day, and you don't eat the fruit the same day that you plant the seed. Patience and consistency, and most of all, faith, trust, and hope as provided by the biological laws of nature. Our goal for Ziggy was to push him into masculinity by encouraging responsibilities and, of course, to be seen as a little man with value by his parents. In order to make light of Ziggy's ever-changing symptoms, I needed to use a polybiological approach, including the biology of survival through Germanische Heilkunde. We come to realize that illness is not a mere error, but a purposeful biological program of adaptation, and the biology of safety that is responsible for relaying signals of safety or danger regulation of our nervous system states. If we are able to harness the two to the fullest understanding, we can find an unprecedented level of human resilience that we've never seen before. What is safety anyway? That is defined by the biological needs of the individual, which differs per gender and age. The two branches of survival can trigger biological conflicts in GHK. We are in these states when distressed. All our energy goes to survival mode, or simply shut down all energy and hide. However, the branch of growth and opportunity lies in the safe zone, the ventral vagal system, where all energy goes towards growth. When we look closely, there are actually 6 ways that we can respond to events in our environment. The number one state available to us is the newest ventral vagal state of social connection or social engagement. Then we have fearless mobilization, when we are moving, challenged, happy, having fun, going up the stairs, working, or working out. We have fearless immobilization, when we are just chilling out, relaxing, hanging out, having some me time, getting a massage. Then we go into the fight or flight or fearful mobilization when there is a threat that we need to escape from. This goes into our reptilian system. Fearful immobilization when we feel helpless, overwhelmed, stuck in a rut, dissociated, and shut down when we are collapsed, catatonic, unfeeling, in a mental stupor, wanting to disappear. During the course of a day, we switch from one state to another, depending on the environment. For example, we are in social connection in the beginning of the day. We're having breakfast in the morning with the loved ones, getting ready for work. Then we get into fearless mobilization when we drive the car, go into the office, we start to work, and then we work out, we're busy. Then it's time for lunch. We eat lunch, and then we have a massage after. Then we're in fearless immobilization. And then suddenly we go into work and there's a very angry customer. We go into fight or flight, or we want to hide. So either way, we go into a threat. We are unsafe. Then the manager comes in and pacifies the customer and everything is okay. Ideally, we would go back to social connection. The manager comes to us, sits us down, gives us soothing words, a warm voice, a cup of tea, and we are co-regulating and we feel safe again. And we are out of fight or flight or shutdown mode. So that is the idea of resilience. When we understand that we have these danger zones, and then we immediately try to go back to our socially engaged safe zones. And ideally, we want this safe zone to be our default nervous system, to be our home base, so that we can keep going back to socially engaged safe zones all the time from an environment that is unsafe and back to safety. And of course, this is something that we evolved with. This is highly biological. This is, for me, a biological solution. Safety is our original medicine. It is our biological solution to becoming a more resilient species. Social safety is essential for mammalian health and development, as it fundamentally impacts our survival and our well-being. By activating calm states, it triggers the ventral vagal complex, promoting restorative processes and emotional regulation. It enables cooperation, allows our focus on growth and exploration rather than survival defense. It supports development. Early social safety shapes healthy emotional regulation. Absence creates long-term challenges, while emotional safety really helps us to plug into development the way nature intended. Reducing stress responses, it prevents harmful fight or flight activation, fostering emotional stability and evolutionary advantage. Complex social systems enable effective environmental navigation and cooperation. Social safety is essential for our health, emotional stability, and thriving social connections in mammals. In a world of 8 billion people, children will face constant complexity and stimulation. Building self regulation from infancy is critical because it manages overwhelming stimuli. It helps process emotions and maintain focus amid distractions. It builds resilience. It develops stress tolerance and adaptability for life's challenges. It enables social navigation, fosters empathy and cooperation in diverse environments, and it protects our mental health by preventing anxiety and depression, allowing us to have emotional control. And it supports lifelong success, creates a foundation for learning, relationships, and contribution. So you can't shelter your children forever. They'll spend most of their lives navigating this complex social world, and an adaptive nervous system is their best equipment for thriving rather than just surviving. And how do we navigate the world in safety? Neuroception is not just perception. Neuroception does not require an awareness of things going on. It is nonverbal detection without awareness. It is a neural circuit that evaluates risk in the environment. It's kind of like your brain's secret safety scanner or superhero power that works in the background without you even noticing. It automatically checks if the people, places, and things around you are safe or dangerous. When it senses safety, you feel calm, happy, and ready to connect with others. If it detects danger, your body gets ready to protect you by fighting, running away, or freezing like a statue. It's your brain's way of keeping you safe without you having to think about it. Neuroception in children. Mother is the primary safety signal, and a child needs to feel safe. The biological need is to be seen, securely attached, fed, and engaged. And that is with friendly eye contact, a melodic prosodic voice, soothing touch, and the smell and taste of mother. And this neuroception is heightened in children, especially newborns, to quickly identify strangers as potential threats. Mother's presence activates this nervous system regulation, and children receive safety signals through mother's face-to-face engagement, eye contact, smiling, soothing tones, her physical touch, gentle holding, skin-to-skin contact, responsive caregiving. Meeting these needs builds trust and bonding and comfort and social interaction. Focalizing interactive play stimulates brain development of children. And infants depend entirely on mother for regulation. And therefore, this gradual building of independent emotional management through consistent safety experiences and mild stress exposure with repair. So the insight here is that a child's nervous system is literally coded to co-regulate through maternal connection before developing self-regulation capacity. So nature planned it this way. It's been said that 93% of communication lies in body language and tone of voice, while words are just 7%. It's basically the energy you're radiating to the other person, and it travels in a nanosecond. It can send 200 signals per second. That's really fast. This can be explained in the polyvagal theory as the face-heart connection. And the face-heart connection refers to the neural link between facial expressions, vocal tone, and heart regulation, mediated by the 10th cranial nerve called the vagus nerve. And this connection is central to the polyvagal theory, which explains how the vagus nerve links the brainstem to the heart and facial muscles, enabling social engagement and emotional regulation. When we feel safe, the ventral vagal pathways promote calmness, reflected in relaxed facial expressions, warm vocal tones, and steady heart rhythms, fostering trust, bonding, and communication. Conversely, when we sense danger, these signals change, impacting both facial expressions and heart activity. When we see a fearful face and angry voice, we feel scared. And we feel it as adults, but imagine how a helpless child feels. The goal was to help awaken and strengthen Ziggy's ventral vagal complex to ensure that he becomes that socially engaged, sociable human animal with practice first from the nest, his parents, nanny, his relatives, so that this practice behavior can extend to school and then even the mall, the cinema, the beach, or other places when they go on vacation, as these places will have more strangers than familiar people. When I met Ziggy, he was mostly in reptilian, sympathetic, and shutdown nervous system as his default. He was mostly in survival mode where there is no energy for growth. And I needed to awaken the mammalian co-regulation practice in him by awakening it in all of his family members. Out of all the tools that kept working like a charm was a concept learned in the Freya Biology of Love course. Nothing else embraced the idea of safe neuroception, social engagement, safe communication. Basically, Freya helped everyone feel safe around each other through conscious, compassionate social engagement and communication. It was so hard to do, but it beautifully follows the polyvagal theory's social engagement branch fielded by the ventral vagal complex. And in Freya, friendly facial expression and a melodic, friendly voice is key. We used Freya as a balancing tool for the relationing of family members. When there was a distress indicated by a GHK symptom, Freya was employed to repair any relationship ruptures. This is mom's testimonial 1.5 years after taking Freya with consistent practice. She said that, my gosh, she felt the difference in everybody when she employed Freya. And it was such a big difference when she got out of the Freya energy. When she was in Freya energy, everybody was thriving, including herself. Of course, it wasn't easy. As you can see here, she said she wanted to give up, but every time she went back to it, she was aligning with the laws of nature. And the laws of nature, once they are aligned with everybody, it brings harmony. Looking again at the 6 autonomic responses in the danger and safe zones, understanding that there is voluntary input for social engagement. It is the only branch that is not entirely autonomic, but it can be built and trained. That's why the human potential lies in this particular zone. This year, we noticed that there was an interesting shift in Ziggy's tics. In the past, tics always meant the epicrisis to a distressful territorial fear, meaning that his psyche was in survival mode, reflected in the words being repeated, as all of them were bad words or I'm sorry, indicating anger and guilt or a fight. This year, we noticed that most of his tics belonged to the safe zone, where he was activated but in positive feelings and not of distress, such as the end of school, before and after a school event, or the end of exams, or when he was playing games. It was important for us to note the difference that his psyche wasn't always spewing out distressful healing phases, but rather fearless mobilization, being socially engaged. And through the CT reading of our mentor hinting that the tics could be from a girl, we discovered that indeed it was. He had a cousin whom he grew up with, like a twin sister, who annoyed him every day. Living in the same subdivision and growing up together, she had a very strong masculine personality. She was very loud and opinionated. And it turns out that she had to migrate to another country. And shortly after her departure, his tics started disappearing, or maybe he had only one or two in a day. This was a miracle considering he used to tick every 10 seconds. The tics did come back later, but for very clear reasons. This was a huge track to get rid of. And in fact, when they talk on FaceTime, he gets tics after for a day or two and then they disappear. Bingo. We're always so happy when we find major tracks because then we can orchestrate a way to control his tics. For the vocal tics, they decrease by about 85%. It gets worse when neuroception is unsafe at home and school. It reappears briefly after they FaceTime, when they play online games together. There are days when there are zero to few tics, which is a miracle. Takes about 3 to 6 days to settle, depending on the event. End of school has multiple conflicts, so we already know. Sometimes he has a cough and a cold, so we already know it's around school. And it takes about 2 weeks to resolve to the second part of the healing phase. And so we know that there is already a pattern recognition, so we can predict when the tics will come out. So this was very, very empowering for the mother and the whole family. Another major ingredient to our healing this year was to improve Ziggy's movements. He didn't have very good coordination. He was very awkward in his balance and couldn't correct himself as easily. We went through a series of weeks focusing on the primitive reflexes, and the primitive reflexes are actually needed in early development. They come out for immediate survival at birth. Then they should gradually integrate into advanced postural reflexes, supporting movement, balance, and coordination. However, retained primitive reflexes indicate an immature nervous system, often due to insecure attachment or developmental disruption. So we have the Moro reflex, which is a startle response and the foundation of the fight or flight nervous system activation. It is also the first breath activation. The palmar reflex is a grasp reflex for feeding or clinging, and it develops into fine motor control later on. The ATNR, or asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, is muscle tone for birth positioning, kicking, vestibular or balance stimulation, crawling foundation. So the bottom line is that these temporary survival systems must evolve into complex functional reflexes, and when they don't, higher brain functions remain compromised or inaccessible. Here we have the tonic labyrinthine reflex, the balanced vestibular processing, head righting, gravity adaptation. The spinal galant reflex for posture or movement is linked to fidgeting, bedwetting, concentration issues, and it is there to assist in the birth reflex. Rooting is for sucking, swallowing, for feeding and survival. And with attuned caregiving, keeping the baby safe, the maturing brain inhibits these reflexes as higher brain regions develop. Now, retained reflexes means that it's again an immature nervous system, typically from insecure attachment. And you will notice the fish-like and reptilian-like movements that reflect the primal movements that we evolved with that were meant to progress into higher movement. And if these are retained, it keeps the nervous system in shutdown or reptilian and prevents the individual from developing and maturing fully. So we spent about 4 months on primitive reflexes at home. The mom does exercises with him at home, and there are many free YouTube resources about the primitive reflexes and how to integrate them so that the brain can start to mature. I'm unsure if Dr. Hammer studied these in Germanische Heilkunde, but I believe that this is a very critical point to consider when it comes to developmental deficits and delays in children. During pregnancy, the maternal endocrine, nervous, digestive, respiratory, and sensory system adjust to support pregnancy success. However, studies suggest that prenatal stress can also have direct effects on infant health, by altering the course of fetal neurobiological development. And studies show that both psychosocial stress and pregnancy specific stresses can have marked effects on pregnancy and human development. And so we see here the effects of prenatal stress and insecure attachment. This is basically also what the mother went through during the pregnancy with Ziggy and also his early childhood development. They were not securely attached. There was no social engagement. And that is also part of the reason why Ziggy had his biological conflicts and his behavioral deficits also took place as a result of being in survival mode. The world is not a safe place. So the goal for me was to switch his default nervous system mode from the danger reptilian or shutdown mode to the advanced mammalian nervous system where self-regulation and co-regulation can be achieved. In the case last year, we used several social engagement awakening modalities by bonding mother and Ziggy, as well as dad, mom, and Ziggy. I taught him neuro movement lessons so his body learns movement that he might have missed in toddlerhood due to being in fearful states instead of growth states. Through the Anat Banyel method, as you can see here, there are floor exercises, table work as well. And lately, we added boxing to place him in fearless mobilization that encourages him to be challenged, muscular activation, and a sense of play and competition with masculine mentorship. Here we did safe, immobilized, or relaxed and socially engaged state through the Anat Banyel method. So we wanted him to feel how it feels to be calm and relaxed without any nervous system agitation. So it was actually something that we needed to train him to feel first and then to activate on his own. As often children in the reptilian nervous system states, they don't know how it is to feel still and calm and not do anything. They're always fidgeting. And so when we train the nervous system to know what that feels like, to know what safety feels like, they can access it on their own. Here we did more of the primitive reflexes. We did fearless immobilization through more active movements. We wanted to rewire his brain and let it learn relaxation and high energy states, but still socially engaged and safe. A big part of that was that his parents needed to be part of the activity. So here you can see him with the mom. The dad is also there doing the primitive reflex exercises with him. So it's co-regulation. It's them being a family unit, regulating each other, seeing and embracing. Here are some milestones from May 2024. Shortly after the case study last year, he wrote a handmade card showing his deep empathy and appreciation for his parents. Imagine just saying that I appreciate it all. I wanted to show you how much I love you, and I hope you appreciate this card. Wow, amazing. Ziggy also had his first movie ever. Like he was never really brought out in public due to the tics and everything. And so the parents decided, I think maybe it's time that we up his level, social level a little bit more and bring him to a cinema. And he actually really loved the movie. It boosted his confidence about being in public with tics, and he wanted to watch the next movie and the next and the next. Here he had a self-observation about being a dad someday and how he has to work for his family, seeing that his dad and mom keep working for the family. And so there is this self-identity as a future protector and provider. And we looked at this as a level up in his maturity because he had a self-concept of, I'm going to be responsible someday and therefore I need to work hard. This is not the perspective of a child any longer. Here we looked at this pyramid, and he is actually all the way up top as reciprocal mindfulness, saying that, I want other kids to feel better. And I hope that through my journey, other kids can learn that it's also possible for them to heal just like I did. For us, it's like, my gosh, this was amazing because he wants to be an independent kid. Imagine understanding that there's a possibility for him to individuate from his parents already at that age, to be independent from them and to be self-sufficient and to be responsible for others. My gosh, this really was so big for us. And again, when his close cousin migrated, his vocal tics disappeared almost, all of a sudden and like for a long time till they reappeared. But they had a particular pattern, so it wasn't really alarming. He started rock climbing also, and there was a big improvement in his behavior and his movement. There's like hand-eye coordination here. There's adrenaline boosting. There's dopamine, and and it was really amazing for him, this particular movement exercise. And the development of boys' brains actually rely a lot on motor neurons, which they have a lot of because they have so much muscle mass that when they use the muscle mass, the neuromusculature actually involves and kind of like improves their brains more. And so with this kind of gross motor movement, there was like a marked improvement right after. In a span of 3 weeks, Ziggy's milk teeth fell off. Like, whoa. And it's a good indication of maturity that it's time for him to be more with male mentors rather than his mother. So it's a great sign again from nature, the biological laws of nature. But hey, he's maturing. It's time for him to see a little bit of the outside world. So he was 9 years old at this time, and three of his milk teeth just fell off. And we knew that he was catching up with his maturity. This was a great mishap that happened because it was a blessing in disguise. There was a huge family incident when Ziggy deliberately broke the iPad and felt really bad about it. He was very, very, very scared of his dad because when dad used to get mad, it was really scary. And he still told the truth. He trusted that his dad would understand. And his dad handled it really well without much anger, hugged him and everything. And Freya, mom stayed in Freya restraint the whole time, even if she was kind of tempted to get to get in the situation and see what she could do to help, but she stood back. She stayed in her Freya energy, and everyone's energy balance. The whole situation just corrected itself. So this to me meant that the whole family was in social engagement. The whole family was socially engaged and connected with each other, which was important for Ziggy's nervous system to mature and develop because we needed to take him out of fear mode, survival mode, which he was for all of his childhood. And now training the whole family into ventral vagal, into being socially connected. This was a great test. So I was so thankful that it happened. It was handled so well. Ziggy's beginning to be a social animal. He poses now like a big boy in the middle of his crowd. And this was also the homophilic stage, hanging out with his friends of the same age with the same interests. And these are the kids in his subdivision. So he started hanging out with his boys, and look at him in the middle of the picture, like a real ringleader. So here we notice that Ziggy's tics would increase with anticipatory anxiety or performance anxiety. And look at him moving so well with proper coordination and everything. That's him right there in the middle. And he calms down, he quiets himself down markedly, which we know then that he has the ventral vagal system, the self-regulation system already awakened. And it was just amazing to see that, he's so well coordinated, that his behavior was so perfect that he could coordinate himself and he could dance with the other kids. It was just so nice to see. Once in a while, Ziggy and mom almost fight, but they co-regulate. So this is how I know that they're socially engaged. They will talk, like mom will say, okay, we'll be in her Freya, and then Ziggy will have the space and the ability to cry it out or to realize what he needs to do. This is a sign of maturity. This is a sign of the ability to self-regulate. So meaning that his ventral vagal system is really awakened. This is so amazing. And then mom says, go ahead and do that. Even if she's also steaming, she's also restraining, but her social engagement system ventral vagal is also awakened. So she's able to calm herself down. And then later on, they talk it out and boom, repaired. Ziggy is now showing his leadership skills. So they were painting a whole mural, and like a leader, he delegated the tasks while he took on the mixing of the colors, which he did so well. And they completed a project together with his supervision. And this was also a milestone for us. Here, Ziggy gets a higher class standing from top 6 to top 4. The mom and dad, they never really push him to do well in school. There's never really that pressure, but Ziggy puts it upon himself. And he's the type of boy who just studies for 10 minutes and aces the exam. which, my gosh, the parents are always so delightfully surprised. Here, Ziggy writes a Valentine's card for mom, and look at what he writes down. These are not the words of a child. He is almost 10 years old at this point, and he just says, I still love you even if we fight. I won't give up. I'll help you in your troubles no matter what. So he understands that mom is going through something and he has empathy and compassion for her. There's maturity. I'll be there for you. I understand you no matter what. Even if we fight, I still love you. So it's not like holding grudges like a child would. You did bad to me. You shouted at me. It's like, I understand he is part of the equation. So it's almost like he's no longer a child and the mom is no longer a parent, but a partner. This is amazing, mind blowing for me. And we also notice that vocal tics increase when he fights with his nanny because there's so much pressure from projects and exams. So we understand the pattern already that they will increase and then they will disappear. So we understand that the track and trigger would be the, curtailment of his freedom to play his iPad because he has so many projects to take care of and therefore he can't play his iPad. We understand that this will increase his vocal tics and then it will decrease again. March, the same thing. The motor tics will increase. He fights with the nanny. And of course, we understand that we try to teach the nanny some Freya techniques, but she is unable to really embody them. And it is her job to really push him into responsibility. He finishes all of his projects and we know he has an overwhelmed conflict. So sometimes he'll have negative self-talk. Sometimes he'll cry from the pressure. He'll have a cold, distinct conflict. He'll have a cough, territorial fear, healing face. The parents are no longer distressed by the symptoms because they understand the biological laws of nature and that they're there for a reason and there's a meaningful biological purpose for them. This was a first for Ziggy. During his 10th birthday, the parents decided to surprise him and bring food for him and his classmates. They showed up in school for the first time ever, and they were delightfully surprised when Ziggy was like so surprised. And it felt like he won the lottery or something. He was so proud and so confident and so happy, gushing with everybody that, my parents are here. He just felt like he won, the universe contest or something like that. It was such a great reaction, a great response from him when he was seen and acknowledged and valued. It was just wonderful to know that this was something that really impacted his confidence, boosted him and his maturity as well. Mom sometimes, of course, it's difficult for mom when she sees the symptoms. And of course, it's kind of hard also to live with it once in a while. There are ups and downs, right? It's not all good. It's a roller coaster, but mom understands the biological laws of nature. And here she is being soothed by one of the graphics that Andy put out and understanding the symptoms. She also realizes that neuroception in kids, the sensitivity of kids to her energy, to her body language, the frowning of a brow or the tightening of a lip, just a nanosecond of that changes their behavior immediately. And again, we understand this to be neuroception, and body language and tonality are more important than words. And the signal of safety or danger travels in 30 milliseconds. It's like super fast. And we know also that this particular sense of feeling safe and unsafe has a direct correlation with his tics. There's also a pattern there that we can read. Of course, mom's not perfect all the time. She also has so many pressures and responsibilities that sometimes it's like, I'm exhausted, I'm exasperated, and she would fall off the Freya bandwagon. But realizing the direct effect on her children helps her practice that muscle and start to come back. Here, the parents also, for the very first time, show up in the school event or family day. And Ziggy, again, was like, wow, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I'm seen. So they really just want presence. They want family presence. They want them to be witnessed and observed and valued. It's so important because Ziggy also noticed that there was another child who was crying and it's because the parents weren't there. And when the mom said, what if we didn't go to family day? He said, that means you don't love me. And he expresses them without fear. He knows that his parents will listen to him objectively now. So there is again co-regulation and better relationing. Vocal tics now only come out during extreme emotions, of course, final exams, the pressure. Oh my gosh, I have to ace all of this. And mom now knows that the vocal tics will increase because it's end of school, end of exams. And the healing phase epicrisis will come out in like a vomit of tics. And that's okay with her because there's a pattern now after 2 to 6 days, depending on how many biological conflicts there are in healing. She knows that it will just disappear. Another trial comes out. Ziggy pushes boundaries and complains like a brat that there's slow internet. And mom says, it's a good thing you have even internet. Some kids don't even have internet, and they get into this, bout. They get into a fight, and mom remembers Freya consciously, and and then she starts to restrain herself, practices compassion and patience. And though the situation still escalated, mom stayed calm and then let him cry, let him go to his room, cry, and sleep it off. And then when he woke up, he felt regulated. He was like, I love you even if we fight, we make mistakes, and we learn from them. I love you still. It doesn't change. Wow. This is a really mature little man. My gosh, it's so amazing. This is this mature social animal, right? And you can say he's ready for the world because he's going to fight with people. He's going to have disagreements with them. But for him to be able to access the prefrontal cortex, which where you can access objectivity, rationality, decision making, you can say that he could find solutions to his problem instead of throwing a tantrum, right? In front of his, let's say he has a boss that he's disagreeing with, instead of throwing a tantrum or hiding or quitting, he would actually find that social engagement, ventral vagal complex, and talk it out with the boss. Find a solution, talk it out with the team. We want this nervous system to be activated as young as possible for a reason. We want him to be a social animal. So the mom and I strategized that we would get him into boxing so that there's more bilateral movement, there's more of midline work, and eye tracking will improve. And he really loves it. There's also masculine mentorship in the coach. So there's testosterone upregulating with him, the coach pushing him. And mom notices that the motor tics are diminishing and gradually being replaced by new movement. Here we see Ziggy doing jumping jacks, and this is such a small thing to us, but for a child with developmental deficits, it is so hard to even know yourself, your body in space. Like spatially, you don't know where you are. And also the balance required, the coordination required, the hemisphering required, all of that. Before, he could not even do one jack. It was just crazy. Look at him now. Look at him now. You can tell it's not perfect, but this is as perfect as it gets. This is just a big milestone for us. Like it's so telling how amazing that he's doing in terms of brain development and catch up. And here's Ziggy. He's a social animal. He's with his friends. They play guitar, they sing together. He's ready for the bigger world. Don't you agree? He likes girls. He talks about the birds and the bees. I would say that he's caught up to his, like his peers. And he's a socially engaged little man capable of understanding his own emotions, understanding how to regulate his emotions, the need to regulate it, and also the ability to be there for others, to be there for his parents, to be there for his friends. I mean, I cried when I saw this video. It's like, I'm done. My work is done. This is so mind blowing for me. Thank you, Dr. Hummer, for the 5 biological laws of nature. This case would have presented in a much different direction if it were not for Germanische Heilkunde. The family would not have continued therapy with me if we didn't set the foundation for his progressive healing using the 5 biological laws of nature and, of course, the polyvagal theory and bioregenesis. And here we have Ziggy's graduation because literally we would be sitting there saying, what else can we do? We can't do nothing more because the family is already an independent unit. They co-regulate together. They can evolve together. They can support Ziggy. Ziggy can support them. I mean, what else? There was nothing else for me to do, honestly. So I graduated Ziggy, and here it is.
It was fun. Like it started from small, but it just had a bigger and bigger effect without me really knowing that much.
Wow, that's amazing. What effects did you feel?
It's like less tics. I feel more active at the right time.
Wow.
And I've gotten more hungrier.
You've actually grown so much in all aspects, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. And Mom, how has the journey been for you?
It was a journey of ups and downs. There were times that were very, very difficult, and then I'd always come to you to sort of calm me down, and then you would always predict what's gonna happen next, and
Yes.
that's normally what happens. But right now, I would say that the family is thriving. It's not just Ziggy.
What is your hope, Ziggs, for children like you?
I hope that those with problems or conditions like me, I hope that when they come to you, they can get healed, or at least their conditions get controlled by you.
Oh, wow.
And they get lessened by their machines.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this talk. And really, what I wanted to convey is that the human potential is unlimited. If we believe in, if we align with the laws of nature and how we evolved for thriving, how we evolved over billions of years, we need to find the zone of growth, and that is the safe zone. And herein lies the potential for us to unpause evolution and to continue to become a more resilient species. And it all lies in being socially engaged and finding safety with each other. And I hope that this has inspired you to know that there is hope out there, that we can find solutions to problems that we never really thought that we could ever solve, but really there is hope for everything. That is a core purpose of evolution, is to adapt to the environment, to get better and better and better. And I am just so amazed at being alive at this time, because we have the knowledge that we need in order to unpause evolution and to to find outcomes that were never ever imagined possible before, for especially for special needs kids, to understand how they get to this point is so simple, and just reverse engineering how they got there and finding ways to orchestrate a way for everybody to thrive. This is the future. This is the future. And thank you so much for being a part of it.